I was on Jesse, so I stayed up and watched the whole thing, and it was exactly as Caroline Leavitt said. It would be unifying, which is how he started, and then it was vicious, and there were a lot of laughs throughout it. Here's a little bit of what happened.
As I said 3 months ago, the show must go on. We were back. I think a lot was learned from that evening. A tremendous amount was learned about security and about other things, the dangers of what we all do. But just like my presidency, the second time is always better. It's always better. And the third time will be better yet. After hearing the gunshots, many people yelled, "Get down, get down," which caused Nicki Minaj to start twerking. Do you believe it? Get down. The association really put on a big show. They thought about going with a professional clown for entertainment, but Adam Shifty Schiff was not available. I was disappointed that Gavin Newsom didn't show up. I heard that he recently said that we will lose our country if we don't fight fire with fire. And to be fair, there's only one thing we know about Gavin, and that's that he definitely doesn't want to fight fire with water. I hope that everyone finally got to enjoy their entire very delicious beef tenderloins, very special beef. And I want you all to know that Bobby Kennedy, who's right here, personally ran over the cow in his car. Bobby also suggested an appetizer featuring his favorite cut of male raccoon roadkill.
Oh, man. I love seeing Cheryl Hines' shirt. She's looking at this. Wow. Good stuff, but media didn't seem to like it. Watch.
None of them were funny. They were all just like literal bombs. Like it was just bomb after bomb after bomb. It's like, we're not Iran.
This felt so far to me like one of those awkward wedding speeches where the bride's father thinks he's funnier than he is.
It is not funny to watch a head of state put on a hat that signifies that he is going to be a dictator.
The bottom line is this, I have a lot of trouble sleeping at night. I often have to take Benadryl, but I'm not going to have to take any Benadryl tonight because I could just replay that speech and I'll fall asleep like that.
So, of course, it was the moment where he puts on the Trump 2020 hat that really sort of had them come unglued, even though that had been a joke throughout the speech, and he made it clear that it was a joke. But they can't take a joke. But I think the fact that they are so insistent that he's not funny when, obviously the country is sort of divided, but most people find the guy very, very funny. Even if you don't like Donald Trump, you find him very, very funny. And the fact that they are still incapable of finding any humor in him, I think says more about them than it does about him.
I thought one of the part of the speeches that really stood out was there was a moment where he was talking about his relationship and openness to the press. And he said, I would ask Caroline Leavitt, do I have any calls from the press? No, sir, no, sir, no, sir. Ask Stephen Chung, do I have any calls from her? No, sir, no, sir, no, sir. And I'm thinking, I'm the president of the United States. I'm going to give my phone number to the press. And now everybody calls me. And sometimes I answer. And he kind of talked about that. And that really brought out, Rachel, the fact that unlike the previous president, Joe Biden, which we really never saw, and even the press that adored him couldn't get access to him, this is the most accessible president. And as he defended the First Amendment and press freedom while he took shots at him, because he knew he was going to do that, he did elevate really kind of what is the purpose of this evening, which is about press access and transparency.
Yeah, he's not really rewarded for the press access that he gives. I mean, you're right. All these top journalists in Washington, D.C. do have his personal number. He'll stay for, however long, before he gets on a helicopter or a plane and answer whatever questions they have. He's not rewarded for it. And by the way, they seem annoyed that he was roasting them. That's kind of what this evening's about. He gets up, he roasts people, and there's no better trolling than putting on a 2028 hat, something that, just absolutely drove them crazy. And you'd think after everything that happened, on the last one, that, he's almost assassinated yet again, that they would just put down their own swords and just have a good time. But they couldn't find it in themselves to do that. So,
He one of the funniest moments I thought was when he said he was talking about trying to match his shoes with his bulletproof vest. And when you wear a bulletproof vest, he said, "I'm not doing that. It makes me look 21 pounds heavier. Not gonna do it." All right.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.